it's a very interesting guess. Hang on.
Okay, there you
There.
go.
Larry, would you introduce your, I know you go by Larry, it's Ilarion, but I just put this together. But you've written a book called The Wisdom Keeper. And your background and so on, we're talking about spirituality. And you come from a very interesting place that would be talking about spirituality. Could you just introduce yourself a little bit? I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but you've written a book called The Wisdom Keepers. And this is all about us getting out of knowledge and getting into wisdom. I'll just leave this up for you to maybe just walk us through and talk a little bit about yourself.
Okay, ang Juan, kelam mechamna kelam kasuda, tingunangan way, unangan asofta kuya. I said, good morning. The morning tastes good. That's the way our people greet each other every day.
Beautiful.
And I said that, hello, my other self, ang Juan. And this is the way, again, that we greet each other every day. My people have been very spiritually grounded throughout their entire being. I said also that my name is Kuyach, which means like an arm extending out from the body, a carrier of ancient knowledge into modern times, a messenger. And I was given that name at 4 years old, and by the last Kuyach that was left alive amongst my people. And now I'm living the legacy of that name. So I'm really glad to be here and to meet and hear all of you. My people, as I said, have been very spiritually grounded. We have stories about coming out of Egypt, going to out of Mongolia to Siberia to Kamchatka and across by traditional craft, not by the Bering Land Bridge, as most scientists say. And we developed the most densely populated linear mile of shoreline in all of North America for our time, in a place that's very hard to eke out a living. And the way that we did it, you know, I learned from my grandfather when we would, to get to know my grandfather, from my grandfather to get to know me, I had to live with him 24/7 for 2 years, starting at age 4. And he taught me one day when we were going out to pray in the Bering Sea, we take our shirts off and spray ourselves with the sea and pray towards the east. And that very night, we might go to the Russian Orthodox Church because he saw no difference in where one gets one's spirituality, not religion, but spirituality. And he said that our people, he taught me that our people survived and thrived in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years, then we're still here. Because we don't use words very much. We are known as people who Unangan, which means the people by the sea, or the real people by the sea, is the reason that we are that way is because we don't, the most important thing that happens, experiences that we encounter during our lives are not to be expressed, they are to be felt. And that when we express them, we diminish the experience. And so they're very careful, our people are very careful about what words we use. And what I'm doing now, working with the wisdom weavers of the world, which are elders from all over the world, when we got together for the first time in Kauai in 2017, we asked only 2 questions. 1, what is the state of the world as we see it now? And 2, what must we be doing now? And this was put on film and shown by Reuters worldwide in Earth Day in 2020, and seen by over 80,000 people first day. So it was a good launch. And what the elders are saying is that we must change our consciousness now. And that what we are doing is, we need to change the consciousness from the mind to the heart. And the heart traditionally tells the mind what to do. The mind's job is to implement that which your heart is telling you. And now, of course, we reversed it. And therefore, we have created all the things that we call problems around the world today. The daunting issues that we're facing are caused by this separation from self. That when we left our hearts and go to the mind is focused on guilt, shame, anger, rage, remorse, jealousy, all these things from the past that live with us here today. Or fear, which is projection into the future. Every place except the proverbial now. And that the result of that is that people all over the world are concentrating on stopping things that are bad. Political corruption, wars, refugees, the gross violation of women, all of these things that we are trying to stop because that's what we think we're called to do by our hearts. And that they said, the elders say, we are energy beings. And that we have spiritual, mental, physical energy. And when we focus on stopping something, we are putting that energy into that which we're trying to stop, and it gets bigger. And that they say that instead, what we must do is focus on that which we want to see in the world without reaction to anything. And that, yeah, there are things that we must do to try to stop things that we know are wrong or bad or negative in some way, but do not pour our mental, physical, and spiritual energies into that.
Larry, I tell you this, and I may call you Larry, but for Larry or
Ilarion.
Ilarion. Ilarion. One of the things I'd ask, in actual fact, because we're going to move on to the other spot, you said in order to deal with these critical issues, you argue that you have to re-enter the chaos of the natural world, rediscover our balance of masculine and sacred feminine, and heal ourselves. Then perhaps we can heal the world. In other words, know ourselves. Would that be correct?
That is correct. The elders are saying that the most important thing that we can do individually is heal ourselves. The rest will take care of itself. That then things are begin to become in balance, and that without that, we're struggling. Now, even Einstein said, you can't solve the problem by the same consciousness that created the problem in the first place. And that's exactly what we're doing. The state-of-the-art thinking, state-of-the-art technologies are nothing but the old regurgitated as the new.
Dead on.
And so here we are.
No, you're among, like the person that just spoke before you, Jivasu, you two would be in actual fact mirrored exactly what you put, both of you. It's amazing. You're coming at it from different angles.
Exactly.
The exact same thing.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Now, I'm sorry I hijacked that, but I couldn't, when I saw who you were, I said, in actual fact, you're so in touch basically with the non-material world, if you like, and you grew up in that. We have to listen to you. So we're certainly going to be very interested in what you say through this. And Shiv, I'm going to turn it back to you to have the other speakers, and I'll get off the share. But wonderful to have you with us, Larry. Absolutely wonderful. Okay. Sorry, Shiv, back to you.
So I'm going to request the youngest person here who's on the panel to speak. And are you there, Sanjeev? Yeah, there's Sanjeev Bedi. He's a young professor at the University of Waterloo, and I requested him to come and say something to us. So to honor the youth, I'll ask you to have you say now.
Good afternoon to everybody in the panel. Thanks, Shiv, for the introduction. I was feeling kind of old, so calling me young, made me feel much better. Thank you very much. I don't have any grand words of wisdom, but I would like to make a few comments about why personal and common goods, we realize that these things are good for us, but they elude us. I'll just give you my perspective on it. I'll try to be brief and I'll try to be very concise. I think about a few years ago, I was reading a book. It was a book about how the brain works. And actually, it was written by an economist from Israel. So I thought it was fine. It was very different that an economist was writing about the brain. But anyway, the reason, as he described in the book, was that he had actually figured out how the brain would work, and he had used that information to describe certain theories and philosophy and thinkings in economics. So one of the parts that he said was that brain basically, it has different parts, as was alluded by the previous speakers, and they focus on different things. But the key thing is that whenever a situation or a word or a thing is presented to the brain, the first thing it does is one part of the brain fills it with information that relates to that entity. So it just immediately extracts that information and fills it. And then the top part of the brain then weaves a story, or basically fills it with information or with some processing, so to say, and completes the picture. Now, in case the data is not complete, in case there are incomplete facts, then the brain has the tendency to patch them up with pieces of information which it sees, which it thinks is correct. They may not be facts, they may not be totally correct, but it extracts those pieces of information from prior experiences and then just patches it up until the story is complete, full, and it at least makes sense to the brain. This is how, in some very simplistic sense and pertinent to the question at hand, the brain works. So just brain is a complex thing. I don't want to leave with the impression that this is a very simplistic thing, but just in perspective, this is basically how the brain works. So now, when a situation is presented to a person and they don't have complete information, so you know that it is good for you, this is going to be, but there are many other things. What is the cost? How am I going to survive? There are many other pieces which are missing. And so when the brain starts to fill in those patches, it might fill in with incomplete information, or with information derived from past experiences which don't totally relate to the situation, but are connected. And these past experiences force us into following the tradition, the trends which others around us are doing, because most of our experiences tend to be related to people around us. And it is this that makes it harder for us to follow what we know is good, what we, in our hearts, but this patching up, this is exactly the way the brain works, and this is basically what makes it difficult. Anyway, this is just my perspective on things. I haven't done a great bit of study on it, but I thought that my reading was a little relevant to the question at hand, so I presented it to you. Thank you for listening.